Hello everyone, it is just before 2 p.m. on a rather cold Saturday afternoon in England, and I'm pleased to say we're doing the first ever Boxing Gossip live show with the option for listeners to phone in via Skype. Now before I open that up, I'm just going to wait till the stream goes live on YouTube, which will take just a few more seconds, but I want to just make 100% sure that the sound is working right and everything's coming through nice and clear before I sit down for an hour or 2 hours and find out only afterwards that, you know, it's not coming through live. So just bear with me for one moment. I'm just going to wait to see till to double check that the stream's gone live on YouTube. And as soon as I've found that out and as soon as I've double checked, then we can get into the swing of things. But it's certainly going to be a very, very exciting weekend of boxing, and I'm looking forward to getting this up and running. Just give me one moment now. I'm just not able to find a stream. I can see there's people who've joined in the room, so I presume that it has gone live, but just bear with me for 1 minute, because it's just not showing up for me at the second. Still not showing up for me, which is very, very odd. But give me 1 or 2 moments and I'm sure it will all be coming up clear. I think we're good here. I think we're good. Yes. Just bear with me for 2 seconds, guys. Sorry, one more. I think we're good here. I think we're good. Excellent. So we are up and running. Thanks to everyone who has joined in. As I say, this is the first hangout that I've done with the option to Skype in. My Skype details should be in the title. Put simply, as boxing.gossip. So I'm going to upload Skype now onto my iPad. I'm just going to stick it next to the computer, and anyone who wants to call in, if they do, yeah, feel free, and we can get some dialogue rather than just me ranting at the screen for the next few minutes. But yeah, I'll wait till somebody does call in if anyone does. But while we're waiting for that, I'll crack on. Let's talk about the weekend. Obviously, we've got some big fights ahead. We've got David Haye tonight versus Mori on Dave. That is if they decide that they want to show the fight live, or if they just want to run a repeat of Storage Hunters like they did last night when we were all tuning in for the David Haye preview show. Putting that to a side for a minute, we've got some excellent heavyweight action in America. And this really is the weekend of the heavyweights. You know, we've got Deontay Wilder versus Spilka. We've got Charles Martin versus Glasgow. So it is going to be a big week of heavyweight boxing ahead. I am very, very much looking forward to it, which is good. The fight, I think, is probably going to be the tightest is actually Glasgow versus Charles Martin. You know, I think that one is going to be a real 50-50 matchup. That's the fight where, you know, I wouldn't be surprised overly if either guy won, you know. Whereas the Deontay Wilder ones, the David Haye ones, obviously we've got some real strong favourites in those matchups. But you know what it is with heavyweight boxing, one punch can change everything. Deontay Wilder and David Haye, very, very good fighters at their best, but are they vulnerable to being chinned? Could they be the kind of guys who get caught out? You know, we've seen that happen time and time again before with Lennox Lewis, you know, against Hassan Rahman, Oliver McCall. Seen it happen with David Price. You know, one punch can change everything in heavyweight boxing. So, you know, I'm really, really looking forward to that. Next week, there's more heavyweight boxing as well. We've got Joseph Parker versus Jason Bergman in Samoa, actually. But the New Zealand heavyweight prospect Parker fighting out there, where he's originally from, I believe. You've also got Dominic Breazeale versus Amir Mansour as a sort of co-main event on the Danny Garcia versus Robert Guerrero fight. So it's a lot of heavyweight action, but it's not all about the heavyweights. There's a lot of other big fights out there as well. So yeah, good times for boxing. It's been slightly quieter in the new year, but I'm looking forward to it now. The year's starting to pick up, I think, the week after that. So, you know, a fortnight from now, we've got George Groves making his return to the ring after his second world title failure to Badou Jack. So big, big times ahead. We've got Quigg Frampton to look forward to. And yeah, I'm certainly buzzing for boxing in 2016. So I'm just looking into the chat now. We have R7Tilo7, we have Gaz, and we have Tom. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in. In terms of the schedule for this show, obviously, loosely want to discuss tonight's boxing. But, you know, we're not overly rigid. Happy to discuss it. Happy to take some questions. Happy to mix and match with some topics. Francis has just joined. Hello, Francis. And what I'm hoping for is that we'll get one or two callers on Skype. So I'll put my Skype details up just as boxing.gossip, which is showing on the screen. And if anyone wants to call in, then yeah, by all means do call in and let's join the show. But yeah, I guess what we'll do then, seeing as we're just getting started, is we will start with Deontay Wilder versus Arthur Spilka, because that is the only heavyweight title fight tonight where we already have an existing heavyweight champion. And Deontay Wilder comes to the ring having won his belt from Bermains to Bern, having subsequently defended it against Eric Molina and Johan de Paul. And he is now facing Arthur Spilka, who, to be honest, is actually a step up in terms of level of competition from Molina and de Paul. As far as I'm concerned, anyway, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I think it's Spilka is beatable. He is a smaller guy as the heavyweight divisions go. I think he's there to be hit. I worry about his range with Arthur Spilka. You know, for me, he's the kind of guy who will stand somewhat at the end of Deontay Wilder's jab, stand at that dangerous 3/4 length range. And I'm not 100% sure about Spilka's punch resistance. You know, I'm really not. We saw Spilka get hurt in the fight against Bryant Jennings, hurt to the body and hurt to the head. We saw Jennings stopping him, you know, and Jennings, to be brutally honest, Jennings isn't the biggest one-punch knockout artist in the world. I certainly wouldn't say that he's as big a puncher as Deontay Wilder. So I worry about Spilka's punch resistance tonight, actually. I'm worried that he could get hurt. And I think Deontay Wilder may well win by a slightly earlier stoppage than some people are predicting. You know, I've heard a lot of people going down the late stoppage route. I think Deontay Wilder, you know, could get him out of there slightly quicker than that, if I'm honest. I'm thinking early to mid rounds, 4, 5, 6, something like that. I just think Spilka, he'll be spirited, but he really is there waiting to be hit. I just don't think he's going to judge the range for Deontay Wilder. I think he'll get caught, and I think he'll get stopped and hurt when he's caught. Just looking into the chat, Louis watching. Hello, Louis. Hope you're doing well, mate. GOTW Bod, predictions for Eubank Blackwell and future for both fighters if they win or lose. I'll come on to that then. Gaz, he'd like to see Huey down the IBF route. He could beat Martin and Glasgow easy. Totally agree, Gaz. Amigon, do you think the WBC president will force the mandatory with Povetkin, or will he allow a unification? He'll allow a unification, Amigon, without any shadow of a doubt. You know, without any shadow of a doubt. WBC do what they want, and they look after chosen fighters. You know, unification all day long. As for predictions for Eubank Blackwell, you know, Eubank seems to be the better of the two fighters. He seems to have the higher upside. He seems to be the one more capable of challenging for world honours. You know, he looked destructive against Spike O'Sullivan. Now, Nick Blackwell's a good puncher. Nick Blackwell's actually better than Spike. He's a more educated boxer. He's extremely strong. He's extremely fit. I just think he's a bit small. He doesn't carry the power of Eubank Jr. He doesn't have the size of Eubank Jr. And I think Eubank Jr. goes on to beat him. I'd like to see Eubank Jr. back with Matchroom after this. You know, if he were to lose, it would be a disaster. You know, he's gone from being the co-main event on a pay-per-view that sold 450,000 to fighting in a shopping centre again on a Mick Hennessy card. Yeah, if he were to lose, it would be a disaster for him. If he were to win, I'd either like to see him sign with Matchroom, or I would like to see him fight Billy Joe Saunders, really. I think that would be a great fight for British boxing, and I'd hope they could get that on. Nick Blackwell, where does he go from there? Yeah, Nick Blackwell's one of these guys who's a solid British level fighter. To be honest, I do expect him to lose when he fights at this level, but you know, I think he'll come again. He'll be there or thereabouts. And you know, there's some other fighters in the middleweight division. Anthony Ogogo maybe coming back this year. Maybe a rematch with John Ryder. Maybe a fight with Spike O'Sullivan. Even there's some Eamon O'Kane. You know, there's some decent names for him to get stuck into in that mix. So yeah, you know, he's a credible fighter. I hope he does well against Eubank Jr. But I don't see him really having the skill, the power, the force to beat Eubank at this stage. So I've had quite a few people add me on Skype. I've had Omar, Sean, Joe, Jamie, Sam again, Tom, James, Paul. If any of you guys are watching, please do Skype in. Let's get some conversation going. If you're not on my Skype, please add me, boxing.gossip, and we can talk live, get you live on air. Joe Riggs says Wilder will go for unification with IBF to avoid Povetkin. Yes, sir. Gaz says WBC should enforce it. It's a joke. Yes, again, agree. GOTW, will Khan end up fighting Garcia after Garcia inevitably beats his opponent? It's not impossible. Not impossible, but I think it's time for the Kell Brook fight. I'm beginning to think that is becoming more and more of a realistic option. Gaz, if you don't enforce the mandatory fights, you might as well not bother having rankings. Yeah, I totally agree. And it really does seem to vary from governing body to governing body, the way they treat these things. But what I would say is, you know, they run as a business, aren't they? You know, the way they make their money is by charging a sanctioning fee of 2 or 3%, you know, something like that, of the fighter's purse. And obviously, the purse in a Deontay Wilder fight is bigger than the purse in a Carlos Takam fight, you know. And because of that, they're incentivized to have these big name fighters holding their titles. And, you know, that's why, for me, that's why you see fighters like Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker being ranked so highly so early on in their careers, because the governing bodies want them to hold their belts, because they know they're going to be in massive fights, and they can charge you know, real big sanctioning fees as a result. You know, we've seen the amount of money Mayweather and Cotto used to be charged by these governing bodies to fight for their belts, so we know that they must be making a huge amount of money off these fighters. And that's why they're incentivized. You know, they're probably less incentivized when the purses are 20 grand. You know, it's a business that operates behind that model, and that's why they have to behave in such a way. So yeah, I think Deontay Wilder most likely tries to unify against the winner of Blazkov Martin. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a world-class fight, Blazkov Martin. It's not a fight that should be for a world title. Having said that, every cloud does have a silver lining, and the silver lining is that we are getting a really decent heavyweight scrap that, to my money, is too close to call as a result of this. You know, a lot of people do seem to think Blazkov is just going to totally out-scrap and just outclass Charles Martin. You know, both his amateur experience, this is Blazkov's amateur experience, and his professional experiences is leagues above what Charles Martin has done, really. And a lot of people do seem to think it's going to be fairly easy work for Glazkov. A lot of people think Martin looks quite sloppy, quite slow, not very technical, and they just think it's going to be too much of a step up too soon. And I can see an argument for that. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Glazkov does prove to be the smarter boxer and can go on to win on points. Having said that, Martin is a substantially bigger man. Substantially. He hits a lot harder. He, if he can use it, appears to have much more range than Glazkov. And I just wonder whether Glazkov is flattered by his record. You know, he's had all of those debatable wins, hasn't he, over Steve Cunningham, Rossi, who's the other one, Malik Scott. You know, he's had these nip and tuck battles. Really, he could have lost to Malik Scott. He could have lost to Derek Rossi. You know, a lot of people felt he won by robbery in those fights. If that is the case, then surely, you know, surely Charles Martin shouldn't be ruled out. Because even though he's fought at a low level of opposition, he's winning, and he's winning well, and he seems to be carrying a lot of power, and he's a bigger man, and he's a southpaw. And if you look at this guy, he actually has some good punch variety. You know, he goes to the body, he can fight on the inside. He's educated. You know, he's not just a slugger. He's a decent boxer puncher in there. And I think Charles Martin is underrated in this fight. I do. So it's a real tough fight. If you've watched my preview video, you know that I've leaned to Charles Martin and I've picked him. But it's a tough fight. I'd be disappointed if Glazkov were to win, because I think Glazkov is average at best. If Charles Martin were to win, at least there'd be some sort of upside. You know, you wouldn't know how good he could be. It'd be an interesting character in the heavyweight division. Whereas if Glazkov win, you just have to assume he'd be a lamb to the slaughter. Okay. I'm surprised nobody Skyped in. I mustn't be as popular as I was hoping I was, actually. I was hoping we'd get a bit more back and forth with viewers. So yeah, if you are watching, please do add me on Skype, boxing.gossip. If you are already on my Skype, please do call in. I'm hoping it will make it quite a bit more interesting than to just have me ranting at the screen. But I'm looking at the chat now, and I'll talk through that. Brandon says, "Hey buddy from New Zealand, who should Parker fight next? When do you think he'll fight AJ?" He won't fight AJ until both of them have got belts, or one of them's got a belt, because they're both on the upwards trajectory, and there doesn't really need to be a clash at this point. You know, neither of them want to take an oath. Who should he fight next? Well, I presume you mean after the Bergman fight, and if you've seen my preview of that fight, you'll know that I think he's going to beat Bergman in a round or two. I've heard, you know, I've read the article about Parker being slow, tired in camp. You know, he's had a bit of a tough one. Obviously, he's been in and out of camp for quite some time now, having a vast array of fights back to back. So it may be a good idea for him to have a 2 or 3 month break. After he's done that, I'd like to see him step up in class slightly. You know, he's still a baby in heavyweight terms. There's no need to rush him. But I'd like to have a fight where he goes rounds again, you know, 6 rounds, 8 rounds. Talk through types of opponents who could give him that. You know, I know Kevin Johnson's supposedly retired, but that would be a good fight. I'm not saying it would be a competitive fight, but it would be a good learning fight. I know Ustinov's supposed to be fighting Luis Ortiz, but again, that's a good one. Maybe Dimitrenko. You know, maybe I think Bryant Jennings, Bermain Stavern, they're probably still 1 or 2 fights away, but you know, those kind of real durable, more experienced guys who are going to teach him something, and he's going to learn something from fighting them. I'm not saying he's got to step up to a 50-50 fight, you know, but I'm saying he's got to step up to a fight where he's at least going to learn something. Daniel says, Haye versus Joshua, if you have already said that, Boxing Gossip. I haven't said it. It's one of those where it all depends how good David Haye looks on his comeback, to be honest. What I would say, the David Haye who beat Derek Chisora smashes the Anthony Joshua who beat Dillian White. Can Anthony Joshua improve from that? Maybe. Will David Haye still be the same fighter? Maybe not. You know, I've got severe doubts about David Haye in his mid-30s, coming back heavy hadn't been inactive. With his style, I'm not sure it will age well. But if he were to be the same haymaker as before, I do think he beats Joshua. Joshua is slower. He's there to be hit. He's not comfortable under fire. And I think David Haye would be such a vast step up at this point. He could slice through Joshua's defence, and I don't think Joshua would know what to do when the haymaker bullets were flying. I really don't. So I think David Haye wins the fight at this stage. You know, Dillian Whyte, that was a good victory for Anthony Joshua, but Dillian Whyte looked quite slow, quite plodding, and he looked very, very raw in there, I thought. You know, a lot of wide punches. His jab was a bit flicky, a bit poor. You know, it wasn't very technical, wasn't very refined, very schooled. And even though Dillian Whyte is a good operator, and I have to give, you know, I have to give Joshua a lot of credit for beating him, still reservations remain for me. People are talking about Parker versus Joshua. It's not going to happen for a while, clearly. Joe said Haye versus Fury. If it ever happened, I'd be with Fury in that fight, definitely. For me, David Haye, not a good fighter against tall guys. You look at his fights against Klitschko, even against Valuev, he became low volume. He became cautious. He didn't want to have to eat the jab. You know, he couldn't jab with a guy who was bigger than him. Yeah, he moves around on the outside, throws a bit of head movement, becomes a low volume puncher looking for a gap. He's not the best guy at judging the distance against the taller fighters. For me, his most explosive performances, Ruiz, Chisora, the cruiserweight performances were against men of similar height or shorter height than David Haye. I don't think he would deal with Tyson Fury. I don't. You know, I actually think there's a solid argument that David Haye lost that Valuev fight. You know, clearly he lost the Klitschko fight. He's never been the same to me against a tall fighter with a jab. Yusuf, do you think Chris Eubanks will become a world champion in the future? It's not impossible. On the balance of, you know, there's so many belts and there's so many weak champions, and he'll be well managed that he probably will win something at some point. But I think in terms of being a real world champion, beating someone like Billy Joe Saunders, beating someone like Golovkin, I don't see that happening, no, because there's still too many errors in his game. You know, the guy really cannot block a jab whatsoever. You know, he seems to have very limited defense other than taking punches clean on his chin. You know, and I think he will struggle defensively to win a world title at this stage. You know, I just don't see him in that world title level. You look at some of the punches he was getting hit with by Spike O'Sullivan. You look at how easily Billy Joe Saunders outboxed him. I mean, there you are. So I just don't think at this point he's world championship gravy, to be honest. Francis, after Haye beats Mori tonight, where does he go next? Is the next fight a title fight? I've heard he wants to stay very busy, actually, which he needs to do given the inactivity and given his age. So I have heard that he will be looking to fight in March, April, which I mean, guess means he's going to be in against a similar opponent, trying to set up a big fight in the summer. So I would guess no big names. Next fight, I guess it will be a Mark the Mori type opponent. Tom, AJ versus Haye in 12 months. To be honest, it all depends how Haye looks. As I say, if Haye's the same haymaker, I think he can beat AJ. But you know, we'll just have to see how he looks tonight. I'm sure I'll discuss that after the Mori fight. Jeremy, hi buddy. There is talk about Parker going to the UK this year. What UK fighters would be a good matchup? Cheers for your channel from New Zealand. Cheers, Jeremy. Appreciate you tuning in. Who would be good matchups? Derek Chisora. That'd be a good stepping stone. You know, Chisora is very beatable. He can be outboxed, but he's quite durable. He's got a good style. You know, he's kind of got that Joe Fraser, Bob and Weave type style. If I was managing Parker, I'd keep him away from Dillian Whyte, David Price. Those guys, you're not going to get much credit for beating them, you see. They're both coming off bad losses, both coming off knockout losses, but they're both decent operators in the day, and they both hit so hard. So I'd be more inclined to go down the Derek Chisora route. I would save the Anthony Joshua matchups, Tyson Fury matchups till he's in a position at world title level, personally. I heard Frank Warren saying he thinks Parker could be the best of the lot. So who knows? Maybe there's some rumour that Frank is trying to sign Joseph Parker, which would certainly spice things up. Mark says, what do you think is going to happen to Luis Ortiz this year? Is he one of the most underrated heavyweights? Yeah, I have him number 5 in my rankings, Mark. I think he's a real class operator. He's very old though. He's not in the best of conditions, and I do get concerned that he'll get badly exposed when he has to go rounds. I think Brian Jennings fought a terrible fight against him, and if he'd used his movement, maybe he could have stopped him late. His next fight's against Ustinov, as I understand it. That's a good fight. I think Ortiz beats Ustinov. But he's going to be an avoided guy. No one's going to want to fight him. People are going to want to wait till he gets old. So it's a tough road for him. Amigan says, given he once stated it takes him 6 months to prepare for a fight, it'll be interesting to see the turnaround for his next fight. Yeah, I mean, he really does have to keep that momentum up and running for me, David Haye, because he can't afford to be inactive again. Brandon agrees that he wants Parker in more competitive fights. And Yusuf says, do you think Amir Khan versus Kell Brook would happen this year? If yes, who do you have your money on? I think it probably will happen this year, but it could go either way. I won't believe it till I see it signed. Who would I have my money on? Too close to call. For me, this is the typical 50-50 matchup. If you put a gun to my head, probably lean with Kell Brook, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Amir Khan were to win. A lot of people seem to this fight creates a lot of passion in people. There's almost like religious type followings. People who part of the Khan fans, like massively into Khan. A lot of people hate Amir Khan. I'm actually more on the fence. I really like Amir Khan, but I really like Kell Brook actually. I'm fans of both guys. I don't have a strong opinion as who's going to win. I'm really on the fence, but I'd like to see the fight. Amigan says he's really disappointed in Khan wasting his prime years. Yes, you wonder about his motivation. He needs to keep busy sorely. And Gaz said he'd have a cheeky bet on Khan. He thinks he's got the speed to bother Brook. Yeah, I agree. And Brook isn't the most versatile fighter. If Khan can work on a good game plan, you wouldn't rule him out. But Brook has that equalising power at any moment. Right, guys. So we're 22 minutes in. I haven't had any callers via Skype, so it appears that my idea of a phone-in show is a horrendous flop. What can you say? I'll try one more time, just in case new people are joining the room, but I presume I'm flogging a dead horse here. But if you are watching, do add me on Skype, boxing.gossip. I was trying to get people to phone in and have a bit of a dialogue going back and forth. Oh, as if by magic, we've got Sean calling in. Hello, Sean. How you doing?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Can you hear me?
You can. I can, although your Skype doesn't seem to be syncing into my headset. It seems to be going through my speakers, which is a bit bizarre. How the fuck do I fix this up? Because I can hear your YouTube channel through my headset.
Yeah.
But I can hear your voice through my speakers. I don't understand how that works.
That must be pretty confusing, yeah. I am not an IT guy, I'm afraid. Yeah, that is the limit of my expertise on that subject. But how you doing anyway?
Yeah, not bad. So I've got a few topics that I wanted to bring up, and thanks for bringing me into the show, obviously.
No worries.
So just firstly and quickly, I just wanted to go up to a comment that Yusuf made. Why does everyone refer to the Eubanks when they speak of one of them as Chris Eubanks?
I think I know the answer to that, actually. I think the surname is actually Eubanks.
It actually is?
I think that's what I've been told. I believe that is his actual name. It's just he's got into calling himself Eubank, yeah. So you'll often hear Frank Warren calling him Eubanks on interviews and things. I think that's because back in the day, that's just the name he used to go by.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I thought it was something that was possibly people were just doing to wind them up. It seemed to me maybe it was something that Chris Eubanks Sr. might have been a bit pissed off about. And I could just see people just kind of carrying it on just to wind him up. But Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. I've always been confused as to why people referred to Chris Eubank as Chris Eubank, so I just really found it a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, I've got a topic that I think you'd be specifically interested in, because I'm a big Billy Joe Saunders fan.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get your take on what you think about the stick he's getting specifically from the American public on essentially ducking Triple G for the time being. My take on it is that I completely understand that he kind of wants to have a few fights and sit in the limelight. And I think a lot of other people think pick and choose, but because he's got such an American backing, seems to be getting more jip than most people. More jip than anyone would give other fighters, just because they're rooting for Triple G to unify the division. So I just wanted to see what you thought about it, really.
Yeah, I have sort of two opinions on that, I guess. The first thing is Billy Joe Saunders, very much came out and said, that he didn't, I don't want to say he didn't want a Golovkin fight, but he often was saying things like he'd need an AK-47 to take Golovkin out, that sort of chat, really. And I kind of think that I don't want to go into this fight, and I don't want to see this fight if one man doesn't genuinely believe that he's going to win. I would rather Billy Joe have 2 or 3 more fights and build himself up, get more experience at world level. The other thing is, from a business perspective, you got to think the amount of money that's going to be there for the Eubank Junior rematch in the summer. It's got to be not a million miles away from the Golovkin money. If you think that could sell out a massive stadium, that could probably be a big pay-per-view event. And it's kind of like, would you rather fight Chris Eubank Jr. or Golovkin if it's similar amount of money? One of them's a guy you've already beaten. One of them's a guy who's probably one of the biggest killers in the sport. So it's kind of sense.
The thing is, I understand your take on that. I personally don't think Billy Joe should take the fight, but let's say he did. He's going to get a big payout from Triple G, right? And the Eubank fight is always there. So regardless whether he loses to Triple G, he can lose, get a good payout, which is what they're going to be willing to pay him. Apparently, I don't know what the figure is. I've seen quotes between $2.5 million and $5 million. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he'll get a good payout from that fight. He could lose it, and everyone would anticipate him to lose it. But then the Eubank fight's always there. So although I understand him not wanting to take a fight and lose his world title that he's got, because essentially if he loses the fight, then his relevance in the division is going to be somewhat less than what it is now. And I think if he were to lose his relevance, then after the Eubank fight, you don't really know what more is there for him internationally. And I think the only thing that's probably left is a Eubank Junior match after that. So I think it would make sense financially to fight Triple G now, because he can always have the Eubank fight after. If he fought Eubank, loses to Eubank, he's never essentially going to get recognition on an international level again, possibly. And he couldn't beat someone that kind of brought him back into the limelight. But it's a kind of big risk if he were to fight Eubank, because I think he'd lose a lot of his relevance. Yeah, I
get what you mean.
I'm sure what I think you do.
Yeah, I get what you mean there. The way I view it is the Golovkin fight is possibly a fight where Golovkin is such a, he's such an aggressive fighter that it could be an absolute war. Billy Joe Saunders some people are saying, he'll never be the same again after it. Now, the Eubank fight, I actually, people give me a bit of stick for being dismissive of Eubank. I actually think Billy Joe Saunders wins the Eubank fight quite a bit easier than he did last time. I don't really see that as a competitive fight at this stage. Eubank's improved, but not improved in the areas that Billy Joe beat him at. He's not improved defensively. He's not improved in terms of accuracy. And those are the areas that Billy Joe exposed him in. I think with Billy Joe's new stamina, conditioning, and his big fight experience, he wins that fight easier. And I actually think that's less of a risk than you know, him being out of action after a Golovkin fight because it's, you know, been a really, really hard fight and he's injured or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I disagree to some extent with your opinion there. I mean, I do think that Billy Joe would win the fight if they fought again, but seeing Eubank's improvement against, I know Jetta wasn't a great fight, but just seeing he seemed to improve the way he was working with his jab in that fight, which in the Billy Joe Saunders fight, his jab was pretty much non-existent. It wasn't very good. And then on from that, when he fought Spike, I mean, I was actually quite impressed with the way he totally dealt with Spike.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think we'd all agree that Billy Joe Saunders probably would have gone much longer with Spike, if not played the full 12 rounds, whatever. So I think the next fight would be much more interesting. I think Eubank would start a lot better. But yeah, I agree. I think Billy Joe Saunders is too slick for his skill set, essentially. Although we don't know how much he's improved from the Spike fight. I'd imagine his sparring partners are probably pretty good these days. I heard like back in the day he seemed to have a problem with getting good sparring partners, but just judging by his boxing skills, his footwork and his jab, he seems to be fighting with some pretty decent people from what I can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to move to Big Joe, I wanted to speak about Triple G.
Yeah.
And his inability to kind of get fights that he wants. And I've kind of had a think about what he could possibly do if he moved up. And if he did move up, I'd say, which is what he's chosen to do it so far. And that's because he's so short. And I think that would pose him quite a lot of problems at 168 compared to the 6+ foot guys that would carry a lot of power and have a pretty long reach. So I want to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there's a good photo online of Canelo and Golovkin when they were sparring, and to me, Canelo looks considerably the bigger man out of the two. You know, Golovkin is not a big middleweight by any stretch of the imagination, and up against guys like James DeGale, Lucien Boutte, you know, George Groves, that size difference is going to be massive. I mean, I don't know if you, you know, if you look at Arthur Abraham, and I know Golovkin is clearly a better fighter than Arthur Abraham, but Arthur Abraham was an absolute wrecking ball at middleweight. You know, he moved up super middleweight. Suddenly, the knockout stopped. You know, he's not knocking anyone out. He went 12 rounds twice with Paul Smith. You know, the punches that are knocking guys out at 160 aren't going to be having the same effect at 168. And I think for Golovkin, who's that naturally smaller guy, I think he'd struggle. You know, I hate to agree with Carl Frost, but I actually do think that someone like Carl Frost would be too big, too strong for Golovkin. And it's nothing against Golovkin, it's just a size thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly why he hasn't moved up. I mean, financially, it's definitely there for him to move up.
Yeah.
Because he's this superstar who just seems unbeatable at middleweight. Why move up, lose a fight, and kind of lose your zazz with the public, essentially? Like, I think staying at middleweight is probably good for him, but obviously he's going to have to pay out quite a lot of money to actually get people to fight him, which I haven't really got an issue with. I think a lot of the fighters in the division know that he's going to spank them.
Yeah.
So they're going to need a good payout to kind of want to get that loss on the record. And that's why I understand Billy Joe, who understandably wants quite a lot of money to take the fight. But I do think that Billy Joe, compared to all the rest of his opponent, all the rest of Triple G's opponents, will probably pose him the best fight for people watching, and will probably obviously showcase his skills more so than people that he seems to have just steamrolled.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Billy Joe Saunders is a seriously underrated boxer. You know, he's got so much to his game. He's such an awkward southpaw. You know, I've been to a few of Billy Joe fights, and one of the ones I was just going to touch on briefly was one you mentioned earlier. I was at the Billy Joe versus Spike O'Sullivan fight, and you know, he made Spike O'Sullivan look so crude that night. You know, Spike never landed a glove on him, not a single punch, and I just think he's kind of, whilst he isn't the greatest offensive power puncher in the world, even though he did show that to an extent against Andy Lee. You know, this guy is so defensively slick. I think he's a tough fight for anyone. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I I couldn't agree with more. I think he's one of them people that's got so much experience. He's obviously been fighting since he was a young kid, and obviously all that experience and ability just to know exactly what you're doing in the fight. You can just see it in everything that Billy Joe does. I think that was the big difference between him and Eubank when they fought. I mean, you could just see that Billy Joe knew how to approach a fight. Eubank's never fought anyone that kind of approaches a fight in the same manner that Billy Joe did. Like,
absolutely.
He's never fought someone that knew how to go in from the get-go and not even have a brawl. I mean, Billy Joe didn't go to brawl. He went to win on points. He didn't look like he was ever trying to. He was just there to do his slick boxing game that anyone who likes boxing really enjoys watching. So
yeah, I think it's about being boxing from being a youngster, isn't it? I mean, I think Chris Eubank Jr. went into it as a teenager, whereas I don't know if you've ever seen if you're friends with Billy Joe on Facebook or if you follow him on Twitter, he often posts video of his son, and his son's like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old, and his son looks like an absolute killer. You know, he's already in like full-time training. So it's that sort of thing about, you know, being in the sport from day dot, you know, having that footwork just so instinctive in your mind. And, you know, Billy Joe Saunders, Tyson Fury, these are instinctive boxers, whereas I see guys like Chris Eubank Jr., Anthony Joshua, those sort of guys, is when the bullets are coming back at them, they need to stop and think. You know, it's not necessarily an instinctive thing. And I think that's why Billy Joe is such a threat to all out there.
Yeah, absolutely couldn't agree more with that. Another thing I kind of wanted to go through was, seeing as it's so relevant today, is the Mori Haye fight.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been watching the build-up. I really like Mori. I think he's a top fella. I think I've commented on your channel. I kind of rate him up with the likes of Richard Towers, who I think is also a top geezer.
Yeah.
But I personally, just as much as you can see Mori's putting his game plan out on the plate for Haye, I can see him getting sparked in round 6, 7. I think he's going to steam train through Haye. I think Haye may have a bit of a shaky start. And by shaky, I mean just a slightly uncomfortable start. But I do see Haye giving him a slap at some point, and I can see him going down. And I'm fairly confident on that. I might even put a bet on in the next half an hour. Mori probably going down round 6, 7. I don't know what your take on it is. But
do you know what? I'm not 100% sure it will go that long. I've watched a bit of the Mori. I think there's actually a bit to like about him. He's being underrated, but some people in boxing who I do respect, you know, I was listening to Spencer Fearon the other day, and Spencer Fearon thinks it'll be a 20, 30 second job for David Haye. I think the Mori's got some capability, you know, he's got good upper body movement, a bit of a jab. He's not terrible, you know, but I think David Haye is he's going to be so much more athletic, so much more skilled. I can see him hitting the Mori early, and I wonder. I wonder. I also have slight concerns about David Haye's stamina, to be honest. You know, I think that if this gets to round 4, round 5, I think it becomes more of a 50-50 matchup. I think that, not 50-50, but a closer matchup. You know, I think David Haye's huge advantages are going to be in speed, athleticism, movement, and I think those are going to be more prevalent in the early rounds when his gas tank is full.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone really knows what David Haye's going to show up tonight.
Yeah.
He could look fantastic against an opponent that we don't really know much about. I mean, not the Mori, as I've kind of watched from a lot of videos. I haven't actually even watched a fight of this, so I can't really judge him too much. But from what I hear, he hasn't really fought anyone.
Yeah.
And for that reason, he could make David Haye look really good.
Yes.
On the other side, he could turn up, surprise everyone, and really stick it to Haye, and Haye could look really bad, and that's going to look really bad for Haye, seeing as he's trying to rebuild this career and move up to fight Joshua or Fury or whatever.
Yeah.
And although he's never going to fight Fury, but Tyson Fury is a pretty straight up fella, and he's pretty much said that he's never going to fight Haye, and I don't blame him. I'm not really a fan of Haye personally. I think he's a good boxer, but I have a personal opinion. Not that I don't think I'm necessarily right, but I think he ducked Fury twice. I think he knew that the height and reach advantage was probably going to be too much for him. and I think that he just didn't want his reputation to be damaged losing to the likes of Fury, who, as much as Fury's a fantastic boxer, other than Klitschko, he hasn't really fought anyone that's put him on the pedestal and kind of given him recognition by the entire public to be the really good boxer that he is. I mean, beating Derek Chisora twice. I think it was twice he beat him.
Yeah.
Am I correct there?
Yeah, twice. Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't kind of show that he's anything special to the likes of the people in America who would need him to beat someone like Klitschko to kind of put him up there. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know what you mean. It was a risky fight for David Haye at that point. And I've always thought he struggles with these taller guys. Always thought that. He was unconvincing against Valiev. I just think Tyson Fury was a different league to a Nikolai Valiev. I think Fury would have beaten him, and I think David Haye would have lost a lot of credibility there. I do find it hard to believe. You know that cut over his eye. I can't honestly picture him sitting there with a razor blade cutting himself as a way out of a fight. I don't believe he did that, but I know a lot of people do, so it's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it sounds a bit more unbelievable, but at the same time, if he's not looking sharp in training, he's not looking sharp against his sparring partners and whatever, is it worth getting sparked and embarrassed by Fury, like the way Fury, in my eyes, embarrassed Vladimir Klitschko? If you embarrass Vladimir Klitschko like that and made him look as average as he is what's he going to do to David Haye? He's going to do it even worse. Like, David Haye's not going to be able to get near him if Klitschko can't get near him. And Klitschko's what, 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
Then what's David Haye? And I think David Haye's like 6'2", is
Yeah,
he?
yeah, something like that.
Anywhere near Fury, who's so defensively capable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that Haye personally, I think he's just sat there and thought, I can't actually beat this guy. I think he did duck it, and maybe not getting a razor blade and cutting his arm, but maybe he did get a slap by someone, a clean slap to maybe open it up a bit and dodge the fight.
Yeah. Nice. It's going to be interesting tonight, though. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, it'd be good to see what kind of David Haye is left. I do think David Haye is going to. I don't think he's going to be the same fighter, to be honest. In his mid-30s, 3.5 years in activity, a lot heavier. I think the combination of those things mean he's going to be a different fighter. But we shall see tonight, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, yeah, he does seem to look fatter.
Yeah.
I mean, in my eyes, he was never really a heavyweight. He was just a great boxer, and he could make it in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
But now he's fatter. I'm interested to see what he can bring to the table. I think everyone's interested to see what he does. But again, it comes back to the fact that who's Mark de Mori? Is he going to show up? Is he going to pose any questions to David Haye? We don't really know, do we? No.
I mean, yeah, he looks okay, but it's the level of opposition with Mori. That's the real problem. He may just not be able to deal with this level of opposition. It may just be too much. But he's not as bad as people are making out. From what I've seen of him, he's schooled to an extent. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it anyway. But Sword, I do appreciate you calling in, mate. You've been the first ever caller into the Boxing Gossip live phone-in. So thank you very much.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
I'll follow the channel, and if you do some live shows again that I can catch on YouTube, I'll definitely call in again.
Really appreciate it.
Chat if you want.
Yeah, enjoy it. All right, have a good one tonight, mate. Catch you soon. Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
Good stuff. So that was the first caller in. So it wasn't a complete disaster. I was worried at some point that we wouldn't get anyone call in whatsoever. But yeah, I've got a few new people who've added me during the course of that call. So if anyone else wants to call in, the line is now free. So do call in again, and we'll get you live on. I'll just have a look into the chat. A lot of people saying that people are living in the past if they think that Haye's going to destroy de Mori. He's been out for 3.5 years. It is going to be tough. Gaz is saying that. Brandon agrees. Jay Billow says he sees the Mori as very, very, very limited. He's fairly strong, but very slow. He doesn't have the movement. I expect him to go before round 4. I think that's a fair comment. Sarah's saying, do you have a phone number to call in on? Sarah, not phone, it's on Skype. So add me on Skype, boxing.gossip, and I've got the Skype up in front of me, so I will accept it and we can get a call in. Yeah, so that was some interesting points there raised by Sean, you know, about the Eubank and Billy Joe Saunders fighting, about the David Haye fight tonight. Keen to discuss all of those topics, obviously, as well as some of the action going on in the States, Deontay Wilder versus Spilka, and Mark the Mori. I can actually see I've had a missed call from Sam that's just come through. So let me just try and call Sam back, see if I can get through to him. Bear with me for 1 minute. Okay, I can't get through now, but I'll just send him a message to give a call back. But yeah, I think there's a lot of debate about this with the David Haye thing, and I think the reason being that they are both such unknown commodities, aren't they? You know, Mark the Mori, he seems like a solid enough fighter, but at the same time, seriously unknown what he actually brings to the table, given the low level of opposition that he's been in, given the sort of limited footage available of him. David Haye, obviously, he's a complete enigma at present. Don't know what he's going to bring to the table. Don't know if he's still going to be the same fighter. But one thing I would say about David Haye, he was never the most skilled technician. You know, he never had the best jab. He never had the most elite inside game, never had the most elite defensive game. You know, I don't necessarily see him using, like, I don't think he's going to age like a Bernard Hopkins, if that makes sense. Brandon says, which past heavyweight would you compare Parker to? That's a good question, actually. And Brandon, if I'm completely honest, I don't have a past heavyweight that I'd necessarily compare Parker to. You know, hand speed, power, combinations, body punching. I don't know. There isn't actually someone who completely stands out to me as being an obvious stylistic matchup to Joseph Parker. So if you're watching, who would you compare Parker to? Who do you see as a good fit for him in the heavyweight division? I'm keen to hear people's predictions as well. You know, obviously we've got some big fights tonight. Put your predictions in the live chat if you're watching. You know, for the 3 main fights tonight: Glasgow, Martin, Wilder, Spilka, and Haye the Mori. You know, Brandon says, how about AJ? Well, for me at this point, you'd have to compare Anthony Joshua to Frank Bruno. He may well have a higher upside than Frank Bruno, but for me, they're similar fighters. And you know, it will, truth be told, as they stand up in higher levels of competition. Miguel says, was Prince Martin in good shape? You still go with him? Depends what you define good shape in. He is in like a more of a classic sort of heavyweight shape. He's not one of these heavyweights who's got an 8-pack shredded. He's a big lump. He weighed in at about 250. You know, he's 6'5". He's got a decent build. He looks ready to go, but he's not ripped out like a bodybuilder. I think one thing that did strike me is the size difference between him and Glasgow is massive. You know, he makes Glasgow look like an absolute cruiserweight. I think there's about 32, 33 pounds in it as well, so there's no surprise. I am still going with Martin though, but it is a tough fight, real competitive stuff, and either guy could win. Yusuf says, is Anthony Joshua impossible to beat? How do you think Fury would cope with his early onslaught? You know, is Anthony Joshua impossible to beat? Definitely not. No man is impossible to me. For me, Anthony Joshua, I'm not sure how he's going to deal with a guy like Tyson Fury at all. You know, to be fair, Dillian White almost beat Anthony Joshua. I have severe questions about his defense. I have severe questions about his stamina. I have questions about his punch resistance. And I'm not just talking about that big one. Oh, here we go. I've got a call from Sam, so bear with me for one moment. Hello, Sam.
Hey, how you doing, mate?
Very, very good. How you getting on?
I'm coming through.
You're coming through. You're live.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, just calling about the heavyweight extravaganza tonight, mate.
I'm really looking forward to it. Which one are you most excited for?
I guess Glasgow Morin's probably the most competitive.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from what everyone said, I mean, I've seen Glasgow fight once, and that was against Malik Scott. I thought he was useless, and I saw Martin fight once against the English guy.
Oh yeah, Dallas, Tom Dallas. Yeah.
Dallas. That was the guy's name.
Yeah.
I know. I think Barry Jones was sort of slagging him a little bit. And I saw him fight the last round against Zimbano Love.
Yeah.
I think he went 9 with Love.
I think 10 it was, yeah, but something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't like the only thing I think that's there between them, because I don't think there's much about either of them, is the big left hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I think once that, I mean, because I just heard you saying on the YouTube that Morin's got the size advantage by quite a bit.
Massive, yeah. I think it's about 2 or 3 inches and 35 pounds, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I also heard I saw the highlights of his fight with Cunningham.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looks a bit of a war, actually. I was meaning to catch up on that one, but I never sort of got around to it. But he didn't look that much bigger than Steve Cunningham, I thought.
I mean, yeah, I wonder looking at him whether he could make cruiserweight. You know, he's not a big guy at all. He was dwarfed by Martin at the weigh-in, and for me, he's a fighter who's very reliant on his jab, Glasgow. You know, he's jab. That's all he is. And in the heavyweight division, when you've got guys who are 6'8", 6'9", it's very hard to win just by jabbing if you're one of the smallest guys out there. For me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a new era at heavyweight, isn't it? I mean, and I know people are talking about this. Is this guy from the Dominican Republic? I think he's like 4-0. Arias.
Oh, George Arias.
Yeah. People were saying he was going to do something, but I just see him getting. I mean, surely one of these giants is just going to hit him upside of the head and.
Yeah.
He's going to be asleep, isn't he?
I've checked that George Arias guy out actually. I think he's been signed by Bob Arum. Yeah. He's got a little bit of Mike Tyson about him. You know, the way.
Power.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's nowhere near as good, but the way he kind of gets low, he's kind of got that peekaboo style. He's kind of built strongly. Yeah, but I do agree. You know, I do agree that in the era of these giants, you know, Fury, Wilder, Klitschko, you're gonna have to be a Mike Tyson caliber fighter to get to the top. Being 6 foot, you know, it's just you're not going to get to the top as a 7 out of 10 fighter unless you're you know, a Ustinov, you know, or someone of that kind of size. That's kind of my yeah. He's fighting Amir Mansour, isn't he?
I'm actually probably looking forward to that fight more than any of the fights tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, is that next week? Is it that one?
Yeah, I think it's on the same night Rose is fighting.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I might be wrong. I think it's in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's on the Danny Garcia card, Guerrero, but I'm not sure if that's next week or the week after now. So yeah.
That's going to be a great card.
Yeah.
Who do you like, Mansour or Brazil? I know this is getting off of this weekend's fights.
That's all right. That's all right. We could mix it up a bit. To be honest, my initial instinct would be Mansour. I have seen Brazil fight once or twice. I haven't been overly impressed, and I must be honest, he was due to fight Charles Martin And yeah, Charles Martin was a massive underdog against Brazil. Charles Martin was a 2-1 underdog, and I thought Charles Martin was going to destroy him, I must admit. So I'm going with Mansour. I haven't seen too much of Brazil, so I might be being a bit harsh in my judgment. But what about yourself?
I've seen Brazil, and I remember Anthony Joshua was being interviewed by Kugan Cassius, and Cassius kind of touched on the subject of Brazil.
Okay.
So I went and checked him out against some fat guy, some no-hoper.
Yeah.
And he didn't look that great to me.
Right.
I think the guy was. It might have been that Mike Shepherd guy, that guy who fought Antonio Toro.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't look great, and I think I saw him against the guy who got his ear perforated by Kevin Johnson. I can't remember the guy's name. I think he was like Puerto Rican or something. He was on the US Olympic team way back when.
Okay.
It's kind of funny because after he got stopped in like 3 rounds on some Showtime card, the camera panned to him and he just said, "I want the rematch. He doesn't hit hard." So that's the first thing he did after getting sparred. So he got caught a few times by him. He also got caught quite a lot against that I think the guy from Cuba. His first name begins with Y, second name begins with C. I can't remember his name.
Right.
But he kind of pops up on these PBC cards. You see him on the PBC cards every now and then. I can't remember the guy's name. I thought Fred Cassie beat him.
Yeah, I saw that fight. I thought Fred Cassie got very unlucky that night, didn't he?
He did. And I thought, to Fred's Fred, I thought he didn't quite do enough to beat Arreola. But I did think he beat Dominic Brazil. He's kind of in that area with Gerald Washington, isn't he? He's a fair, getting off topic, but he's a failed football player. He kind of went into the boxing, and it kind of shows. I think he gets hit too much for me, and when hardcore Mansour lands that left hand, it's going to be that's going to be it, isn't it? Really? Yeah,
I think Mansour's a big step up, and it's going to be a real big test for this guy. Yeah, interesting. You mentioned that Gerald Washington. Actually, I heard that he signed to fight. Do you know Oscar Rivas? Is it?
Mate, I don't know who that is.
He's a Colombian heavyweight prospect. He beat
Pulev in the amateurs.
He beat Pulev in the amateurs, and he's something like 14-0, 15-0. Yeah, so that could be a big fight, but I expect Washington will get done there as well. So a lot of these American prospects could be on their way out soon.
Things aren't looking good for him, Palau, are they?
Well, we shall see. I guess Al will be staging he's going to be staging a unification fight, isn't he, between Wilder and the Martin Glasgow winner soon. So I guess he's.
How would that work? Because isn't Glasgow Kathy Duva?
Very possibly, yeah. I was kind of assuming that Martin would win, but you're right. I mean, I guess Glasgow would have his own agenda, wouldn't he? Although I guess, to be honest, Deontay Wilder may be one of the bigger money matchups immediately available to him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, unless I don't know, Eddie Hearn wants to write if Glasgow wins, which I don't think he will. But I mean, Eddie Hearn might write out a big check for Glasgow to basically sell the belt to Joshua.
Yeah.
I'm not a Joshua, bloody fanboy by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, you'd have to make Joshua a favourite over Glasgow.
Yeah, definitely. I think big favourite.
I think it's the route. I think that's the route that he'll go down. I think he's a bit. He's seen what Frank Warren's doing. Getting. Not that winning a world title is easy, but getting these sort of semi-easy world title. Fights with Liam Smith and Terry Flanagan against that Magdaleno guy.
Yeah.
I think he's just going to knock a route for him that way, and huge draw from that point on, I imagine.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think that's probably the way to go with Anthony Joshua, and because they've got this pay-per-view model that's such a success, they can't really sit on him for too long. You know, they've got to have every fight now being a big fight for him, and I guess they're going to want to push him towards that world title belt as soon as possible, so they can sell that as a big pay-per-view and everything on that note as well. But yeah, I'm not a Joshua fanboy either, as you know, but I do make him a favourite over Glasgow. Charles Martin could actually be a more difficult fight. Obviously, we don't know what Charles Martin's punch resistance really is like yet, though. So that time will tell on that front, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, has Joshua been in with the southpaw?
Has he been with the southpaw? I'm just having a think. So his last fights: Kevin Johnson, Cornish, Dillian White, Konstantin Aritz, Baktov, Michael Sprott, Matt Legg. Probably not. So
that'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he has
interesting for Eddie Hearn's sake, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, who are the top southpaws at the minute? Is it you got Luis Ortiz, obviously? Tyson Fury mixing it up. I always thought Tony Thompson would be a fight that they'd take at some point, you know, for Joshua, and that might be a good sort of learning southpaw fight. But they're probably nervous about after he upset Solis and Price, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Thompson Joshua. I don't think that's a competitive fight. I know it happened with Price, but he's a bit better than Price. I think is Joshua. I would say Joshua. And unless something crazy happens and Price lands that right hand, I'd say Joshua will probably do a Price in a couple of rounds.
Yeah. I mean, Joshua does appear to be a better fighter than Price. I think I've always quite liked the Joshua Chisora fight, because I thought the style of Chisora could be a real good test for Joshua. Obviously, AJ is a favourite in that one as well. But you know, I'm just thinking, because Joshua's fighting in April, it's going to be O2 Arena. They're going to want to sell it out, and they're going to want to do 400,000 pay-per-view buys. So I'm thinking, which opponent out there is an easy win for Joshua, does 400,000 pay-per-view buys, and sells out the O2? And the only one that we could think of was actually Let's Go Champ, you know, Mr. Briggs, because he would sell it, wouldn't he?
He would. That would be a good little freak show, wouldn't it?
It would, because the thing is, like, even if they get a better boxer than Dillian White, it's not going to sell in the same numbers, is it? Because that's sold to the casual market because of the animosity, the history, and then it's going to be hard for them to beat those numbers, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying. It clearly wasn't a Lee Campbell, Tommy Coyle, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, look, they hate each other. No, they don't really.
Yeah.
You know, type of scenario, or you know, Bellew and Cleverly type thing. They really did hate each other. You know, so he could sell that as, you know, British title. You know, because you know most people would be like, you know, 20 quid for a British title fight. You know, get out of there. You know, but maybe the Finnish guy.
Hellenius.
Yeah. I mean, I know you think he beat Derek Chisora, and I think you're the only one out there who thinks.
Yeah.
I thought Derek Chisora won it easy, but I mean, I haven't seen the fight in a few years. Maybe if I go back to it, I'll, you know, think slightly different. But yeah, I mean, he's not the best out there, is he? And you know,
No.
You know, he's a big lad, and he can, you know, if he connects with the bombs, you know, imagine get him out there.
Hellenius is very beatable. I guess three things about him is he's got big size, he seems to have a very good chin, and he carries very good power, and that always makes him a risk. You know, even if he's kind of got that Dave Price factor where I'm not 100% sure the risk reward is there. You know, it's a risk to fight someone who's got a good chin and can punch very hard, but it's you know, what is the reward for beating Hellenius? You know, he's not a huge name. I know it's the Euro title, so Hellenius could obviously vacate the Euro title, but I believe he has to fight Chisora next if he wants to keep that belt. he's also, the one thing I also found out is Hellenius is the top-rated IBF person, I believe, after Glasgow and Martin. So he might be in a mandatory position for that belt at some point as well. So yeah, I don't know, but he'd be an interesting opponent. He lacks charisma though, doesn't he? He wouldn't sell the fight like Dillian White did.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, Derek Chisora in the past, you know, he's had a bit of a mouth on him.
Yeah.
So, you know, you'd imagine, and I think they're friends actually. I think personally they're actually pretty good friends because I think they were at Finchley together.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And they scored like, you know, God knows how many rounds there. So, you know, would people be buying it? And you know, and also, unless they you know, sold something around those sparring sessions, something that happened in those sparring sessions or whatever. You know, they kind of did that with Groves and Froch, but you know, Froch was saying he knocked Groves out, called him sparring, and Groves was saying, yeah, but I came back a week later and
Joshua Chisora, whereas they don't tune into Joshua Hellenius. But I'm not sure, as you say, I'm not 100% sure Chisora wants to fight anyway. He seems very much in two minds over it, doesn't he? So yeah, that's.
Do you mean wants to fight as in wants to fight Joshua, or wants to fight at all?
No, wants to fight Joshua. I think he's probably more interested in the Euro title and a Hellenius rematch, or even Dillian White maybe rather than Joshua at this point.
Yeah. If I were him, I wouldn't fight Dillian White. If I were him, I really wouldn't fight them. You know, first of all, because what happened in the AJ fight.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, you know, it's like, you know, if you lose to the loser out of fight, then you obviously can't be the winner. So obviously that hurts him in terms of how you sell him to the public.
Yeah.
But, you know, Dillian White can bang a bit. You know. You know, I don't know.
He's a threat, yeah, he's a threat. I was listening to the Sky Boxing podcast as well. They had one of the boxers who's the welterweight Southern Area champion from the gym said he saw Dillian White drop Derek Chisora with a body shot in sparring. So, you know, clearly Chisora knows that there's some sort of power threat there from White as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and, you know, it's interesting because wasn't there like an Instagram or a Facebook or a Twitter? I don't follow Dillian White at all on any of those things, but wasn't there a photo kind of circulating for the Joshua fight of him looking absolutely chiseled, and then he came into the ring looking sort of a bit like pudgy or whatever?
Yeah, there was actually. I found that pretty odd because you're right, there was. Yeah.
Well, which sort of makes me think he did his shoulder and training and fought anyway.
Yeah.
So you know, he can obviously, you know, do the workouts because of his shoulder. But I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, then you know, you think to yourself, you know, what would have happened in that Joshua fight if he, you know, came in with a bit more speed and a bit more in the tank. You know what I mean?
I'm sure they'll do a rematch because the money is there, the interest is there. I mean, I agree with you actually. I think Dillian White, you know, his career high payday would have been 10 grand, 15 grand. Supposedly he got £500,000 for this fight. You know, if he did have an injury, he couldn't pull out, could he? I mean, he needed to get there. But Sam, I must crack on, mate. But thank you very much indeed for calling in. I do appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you soon, I hope.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye now. Bye. Thanks very much to Sam for calling in. It wasn't a complete disaster then. Worst case, we got 2 callers out of it. I'm just having a look at the chat. Brandon's asking which route will the prospects go down to win a heavyweight belt. It's got to be the IBF route. You know, vastly easier way. They give their mandatory challenges title fights earlier. You know, there's no big weight, and the champion, whoever it's going to be, is going to be a weaker champion than Fury or Wilder. Jay Below, I hope Spilker has been working on some good tactics. He looks to be using dynamic movement. These guys could both go out there looking for a KO. This is the fight I'm looking forward to most this evening. Yeah, easily. You know, this could be a real entertaining fight. I just think Spilker's going to stand in front of Wilder. I think he's going to get taken out. Gaz says Joshua's power is overrated. Eddie Hearn won't want his cash cow getting sparked by Hellenius, so I'd expect a British level fighter in April. I get what you mean, Gaz, but they're going to want to replicate those pay-per-view numbers. And I don't know which British level fighters replicate the pay-per-view numbers, to be honest. Daniel says at Dillian's worst, it took AJ 7 rounds to get him out there. Good stuff. Yeah, so I've been going for about 75 minutes now. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? So I guess in some form or another, we've talked about all of the big 3 fights tonight. If anyone's watching live and does still want to call in, we'll go with one more caller. But if not, then we'll wrap it up. And we'll just say that we're looking forward to it tonight. Hopefully, what I'll do next time when we do one of these is publicise it a bit in advance. You know, get more people on the Skype, and then we can get a bit more back and forth discussion, perhaps. But yeah, no, I do appreciate everyone who's tuned in, everyone who's written into the chat, everyone who's Skyped in. It's good to do. I'm really looking forward to the boxing tonight. I'm going with David Haye to win by knockout, Wilder to win by knockout, and I'm going to lean towards Charles Martin to win by knockout as well. Well, that is the one that I wouldn't be surprised if the fight goes either way. You know, Spilker's got a chance. To me, he's a bit wild. He's a bit raw. He's going to be there to hit. The Mori, he doesn't have a chance if David Haye is still David Haye. His chance relates to the fact that David Haye may no longer be the same fighter. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in. Karate Chris says, good idea to do these. Thanks, Chris. I'll put up some notice next time, and I'll make sure that everyone's got my Skype details. If you're watching in, please do subscribe to the channel so I can keep you notified. My social media links, Facebook, Twitter, are in the description box. So I'll also be sticking things up there. So do follow those as well if you'd be interested. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this, please like the video. Give me the thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Do subscribe to the channel. I hope everyone really enjoys the fights tonight. And yeah, hope we'll do this again soon. Jay Billow says, much enjoyed. Thanks. Well, thanks for tuning in. Have a good one. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy the fights.